Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And my West Coast connection hooks me up yet again. Here's a gentleman who this is the first time we're meeting. We've emailed back and forth. He's sitting in Chi-Town, man. This is a very cool one. I haven't had anybody from the Midwest on in a while. Mr. Jory Avner, all the way from Chicago. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. So, how was your summer?
It was really good. I spent a lot of it in in studios. So I didn't have to deal too much with the heat, the Midwest heat. But yeah, it was really good. We got a lot done.
In Chicago, I lived in Toronto for 7 years, and the climate is very similar. Stupidly, ridiculously hot in the summer and freezing cold in the winter.
Yeah, it gets really cold here. Get a
And I
lot of
have to ask
snow.
you, Blackhawks fan?
I'm not a sports guy.
There
I
you
don't know.
go.
Yeah, it never clicked for me. I don't know why.
We don't have a problem with that, my friend. We don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So I get this press release, and I'm gonna take a little read here. Um, and basically, your gal Raquel, who I've dealt with a number of her clients. She's got a roster that's. I mean, she doesn't bring on anybody that's a half weight or a lightweight. Says a lot about you. Why don't you tell me? I guess how did you connect with Raquel, and how did that come about?
So yeah, I connected with Raquel actually through another band that I'm really good friends with. They're called a Nova Skyway. They're down in Houston. They're kind of like it's a hard, without going into genres, it's hard to describe, but they're heavier and stuff. But so I was initially going to be going through their publicist, but then their publicist recommended me for Raquel, and that's been a dream. So yeah. She's been great to work with. She's very hands-on and obviously very professional, and just given me a lot of good advice as well. So
I met her by accident. She sent me something that she meant to send somebody else, and her and I kind of struck up a little bit of a conversation. And I've been doing a lot with her. You're right; she's a total pro. So the tagline here, Jory: soft rock with folk and synth influences.
yeah.
Explain that a little bit. That caught my eye when I saw it.
Yeah, so I like a lot of different kinds of music, everything from like the really gentle kind of ballads of like Leonard Cohen or Townes Van Zandt are like some pretty big influences on me, uh, Bob Dylan. But then I also like a lot of that kind of like mid to late 90s almost shoegazy indie rock stuff. And so, I would say that my sound, how it's kind of manifested, has kind of landed somewhere in between there where it fluctuates on a spectrum of going from being a ballad to being just a full-on synth rock song. So
Being Canadian, when somebody says Leonard Cohen, I always perk my ears up because obviously
ah,
he's an icon around the world. I actually had the opportunity to see him live here in Halifax about 2 or 3 years before he passed away.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I'll be honest with you, I could not believe. I think he was 70 at the time. And he was making his way around that stage like he could have been in his 30s. He was and what a show he put on. Did you ever get a chance to see him live?
It's one of my greatest regrets in life that I never got to see him because he's such a profound influence on me. I'm a very big fan of his work. So and his work has influenced my work so much. So and yeah, unfortunately all I've gotten to see is live footage. But yeah, he's just had like a commanding charisma, on stage, and just truly a unique individual.
Well, not only that, the fact that basically he had a manager that robbed him blind and he was able to scratch and claw his way back and I guess have success a second time around is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So tell me about Plaything. So this single, you released it on September 16th. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was out September 16th. It's kind of 9 months in the making, on and off. But yeah, it was a song that I wrote, obviously when some stuff was going on in my life. and I just kind of needed to write that song. And then
Right.
I took it to my producer, and he immediately was like, "That's the single. Like, we're doing that as the single." And then so we I flew down to Houston, where he lives, and we buckled down for a few weeks. Did drum day at a studio called Psychonaut Studios, run by this awesome musician and engineer, Bradley Lambert. Um, and yeah, just put a lot of blood and sweat into that recording process and the writing and recording process. So
So I guess talk to us about that because a lot of people don't realize, and I try to ask these questions because people who aren't musicians don't understand sometimes the studio process and how it might seem like fun, but when it's going good, it's awesome. When it's not going good, it can be one of the hardest things on your head that you're ever going to
yeah,
experience. Um, the process for doing this song, did it go smooth? Was there some ebbs and flows, ups and downs?
yeah.
How did it all shake out?
No, I mean it was effortless. I mean one of the things I really like about working with my producer is that he is his name is Dean DiCioso, by the way. He recently just worked on. He was the lead producer for Candlebox's latest record, Wolves. So and I mean he's just an industry pro, and he does such a good job of like kind of clearing the way so that you know like all I had to do was sit in the chair and write and play. You know what I mean? Like, and I helped out with kind of like because we did it like basically just the two of us, um, and so like I was helping out with like moving things or setting up microphones and stuff too. But I mean, just working with like we just have such good chemistry in the work environment that it was so easy. Like, but it was just it was a lot. Like the vision for that song really. When we got into the studio, we kind of looked at each other after the initial tracking was done. We're like, we can go bigger. And there was a couple more moments of we can go bigger,
That's a
so
nice feeling, right?
yeah. Yeah, it was a very nice feeling. So and it just I mean, I don't have you listened to the song yet,
I
or
did,
I'm not
yes.
sure.
Well, and
Yeah.
you know what I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I'm seeing the influences that are listed in the presser, but I'm not kind of hearing the influences in the song. Is that by design
Oh,
or?
really?
Yeah,
Um I mean, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like I kind of listen to just like a lot of stuff, and so I think, it's hard to like list everything in the world when someone asks you that. It's like when someone asks you like, "What's your favorite band?" You know what I mean? Like your brain kind of skips a beat on that question. But like if someone asks you like, "What have you been listening to a lot of recently?" It's like,
yeah.
well, that's easy. That's an easier question. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. A lot of my influences come from I'm a big fan of Bright Eyes, like and stuff like that. Cursive, just bands like that from the 90s and stuff, the yeah yeahs, super furry animals, like so
Well, and it's interesting because, and definitely not a critique because when I can, I'm used to somebody listening in influence and proudly displaying it as a song and not
yeah.
necessarily totally ripping it off, but you go, oh, this sounds like this sounds like that. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I didn't it to me it sounded fresh. And I mean, when I look at your influences and I go, okay, this is gonna have maybe a throwback feel, but for me it didn't have a throwback feel. It's a very
Yeah,
now, if that's the right
yeah,
terminology.
it's pretty hi-fi. Like I would say like the recording for that was pretty hi-fi.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I guess that's a compliment, like so
Well, please, and
yeah.
it's definitely not an insult because, like I say, I'm one of those people that when I see influences, I don't want to say, oh, my life's messing up. I don't want to say I prejudge something, but I do.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
this could be neat. I come from a town where we're not necessarily folk, but we have a real Celtic flair. So when I see influences like that, I go, okay, this is what I think it's going to be, and it totally kind of took me to the left side of the page. I thought it was great. Total compliment.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I listened to a little bit of your band too, actually. At least I believe I found your band on
Which one?
YouTube.
Well, there's a bunch of them out there. We have a couple, but I mean, two of the bands right now are predominantly cover bands. But working with an artist that we're working on an album right now up here, like I say, and you come from Chicago. Well, you said you're originally from Florida. Is that right?
No, that's it's like a whole history. Like
Okay.
I kind of grew up all over the place. I was initially born, initially, I was originally born in in Akron, Ohio, and
Okay.
then yeah, I moved around a lot though, like growing up. So like I spent some time in Florida, some in Utah, then in northern Idaho, Washington, back to Idaho, like, and then I moved to Chicago from Idaho, from a little town called Coeur d'Alene. So.
I know Coeur d'Alene very well, only because I had a couple of friends that actually moved there from Spokane, Washington, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that and they're like 45 minutes apart. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I used to go to the knitting factory in Spokane,
Well, there you
like
go,
check
man.
out a
So
bunch. Yeah.
does all that moving around influence what you do too? Because I mean, I grew up a Forces brat. I moved around a lot, and the one thing that it did was that it allowed me to kind of be comfortable around people and not kind of be shy because I just had to make friends so quickly. Maybe did that influence you as well?
Yeah, it did. But it also, I would say, like one of the things that it did for me too is, it gave me a lot of time alone. You know what I mean? Because like when you're moving around constantly and like, you know, um, I mean, there was like a 2 year stretch where I moved like 5 times.
Well,
Like, yeah. So like, you learn how to kind of get yourself out there, but you also kind of get used to being alone, and you start filling your time with these things like that you can do by yourself for yourself. Like listening to music or like playing guitar. You know, and so I think that also really helped in a way. It, it
it's interesting that you bring that whole being alone factor up because when the show started, obviously we were doing another radio show and then COVID hit and whatever. And one of the kind of the factors that was or the constant things that was coming about was we were talking about learning your craft and how people didn't understand there's a lot of alone time when you do that. Sure, you get to jam with
Yes.
people, but you're by yourself really trying to hone what you do and get good. And people don't
Mhm.
understand that. Do you find that
It's a
might
lot of time in the chair.
absolutely, absolutely, and people
Yeah.
don't get it, man. People are going out to parties and you're learning chords and rudiments, or people are going to sporting events or concerts and you're at home doing stuff. Um, what would you say to somebody if they question that? Because a lot of times I get people, you don't, that wasn't like that. It's like, you remember walking by my house and you guys were all going to the beach and I was
Yeah.
practicing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what would I like if someone like questioned that, like
Right.
questioned the I mean, I would say like, it's kind of like a truth about the situation. You know what I mean? Like whether you want to believe it like that or not, it just kind of is, a lot of the people that, it's not an antisocial thing too. I think like any kind of critique of that would probably be from someone maybe on the outside. That's who I'm picturing right now saying
Yeah.
this. It's like someone on the outside looking in, someone who maybe doesn't play an instrument, and they might see that as like kind of antisocial or like, kind of, I don't know, maybe lonely or something. But like I don't know about you, but like during all that time, I'm sitting there listening to Pink Floyd and like learning how to play Dark Side of the Moon and stuff, like learning how to like bend up a major third or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I was never lonely, you know?
I get an electronic drum kit and I just shred it. And the other theme
Yeah.
that kept coming up is if you're not working on yourself and your craft during this time, man, other people
Mhm.
are. And when it opens back up again, look out. And lo and
Oh
behold, a
yeah.
friend of mine said that, and that's what's going on. The people that kind of thought they were naturals, guess what? They're being left in the dust, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. I was just talking about this. I was meeting up with a fellow songwriter last night at a bar. Because so during COVID, like I kind of I was a full-time gigging musician for 10 years before COVID hit. And you know, and then when obviously the pandemic came and like everything got thrown out of whack, and especially for musicians and people in the arts, because like our craft requires an audience. It requires you to be able to go out and do these things. Um, I was like, all right, this will not do. So I actually jumped on Twitch. I don't know if you're familiar with Twitch,
Yeah.
but yeah, I jumped on Twitch and I started taking song requests on there. And at first it was just like something to do to kill time, and then it became something I could monetize, and then it I was talking last night with my friend, and we were like, now that everything's opened back up again, I feel like I was on the ball the whole time, like in terms of like engaging with audiences, like talking to people, be like practicing. Like I got better during the pandemic, not worse.
I'm glad you brought that up because, and it's funny. It's almost like I'm having a throwback conversation here because um, the other thing that kept coming up was technology and using things like Twitch and,
Mhm.
Facebook to a degree and live streaming and those types of things. And people that I guess embraced technology during that time and used it to their advantage, they were still out there making money, or it wasn't the
Mhm.
same, but it wasn't like they were boarded up in their houses. It sounds to
Yeah.
me like you really jumped on that ball and maybe were ahead of the curve of
Yeah.
some of your contemporaries.
Um, I mean, maybe, but it also like there are so many people that are on Twitch as well that like, I also learned a lot, but like that's the thing, like, you know, I've met musicians who are reluctant to learn, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
they're good at the one thing that they're good at, and if you try to get them to like step outside of that, they will just like shrug and say like I'm not interested. Like even if it's something as simple as like learning how to record yourself in a very basic way. Like they push back against that. And I've never felt that way you know, about music and about like technology, and like it's always been like like you can't see it, but like I have like a whole setup over here that like and I learned a lot about like digital looping and like the process of like just even like structuring compression chains and things like that to like create a very well balanced mix. And like this was all stuff that like I had only a slight idea of before, and now it's like I feel like I have a much more robust understanding of the situation and the processes. And like you know I think that's important for any musician to kind of embrace growth and change. And even if it's like hard at first and it's frustrating, um it just, I don't know, like stagnation is death. Like
Well, and that's a you know what that here we go 2 years and plus, and that's a line that maybe I was looking for because the people that were not doing the work, like I said,
mhm.
they're not reaping the rewards right now, and anybody that was, and let's call it what it is, very few people were. A lot of people were feeling sorry for themselves. The people that were doing the work, man, their things are happening for them right now, and this is what I'm getting from you, which is great. Oh, there goes my light, which is great. Um, what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna come
Okay.
back, and there was something that you hit on that I wanna pick up on in the next segment, so we'll be back after this.